Hello Outriders, it is Ebontis here, and in this video I want to cover basically crafting 101 for Outriders. You've got a lot of different things you can do, some which are very beneficial in the late game, some that you probably shouldn't waste your currencies on early game, so let's jump in to crafting 101 in Outriders. The first thing to know about crafting, you're actually not going to have access to this when it comes to the first couple of areas. You have to unlock this NPC, Dr. Zahidi, and he usually, I think, kind of becomes your crafting guy once you rescue him. I think it's in the second zone. The big thing is it wasn't available in the demo, so all of this stuff I'm about to explain was not part of the demo. And this is where you really start getting into the nitty-gritty, the deep builds that you can get into, where you specialize what mods on what weapons and armor, and you can really do some cool stuff. So let's see what he's got to offer, and I'm going to go through each step. So you have 5 different pieces of the crafting options. I'm going to go through these piece by piece. The first one is improved rarity. So you can improve the gear rarity to increase its primary parameter, firepower for weapons, armor for armor, but it's your armor value, and receive an additional mod. Can only be used on unusual, which is green, and rare, which is blue. Alright, so once you go into the improved rarity section, it's going to look like this. Now, you can see the cost of improving the rarity, and this one is going to cost, anytime you get to the epic level, which is going to be the purple gear, it's going to involve titanium. Titanium is a resource you're not going to have a ton of. As you can see down here, I have 922 titanium. And as of this point, this one is going to cost me 179. It's going to cost me almost a quarter of my titanium to take this random blue piece of gear from blue to purple. Now, what happens when you go from, rare to epic? Well, you can see the main things that change are your armor. Goes from 2,900 to 3,700. So obviously your main values of armor and firepower will get some pretty big jumps. You can see the max health, the cooldown reduction, and the healing received. Those don't change at all. Those are basically locked in. And then finally below, you'll notice the option of one mod down here turns into an optional second mod. Now, what happens when you click on Improve Rarity is it's going to give you a choice of 3 random mods to pick from. You have no idea which ones they're going to be, but you'll be able to pick 3, and then you'll be able to slot one in. As it's 179 titanium, I'm not going to do that. And my recommendation for you guys is probably never to do this specifically, unless you get... Now, this is going to be a rare circumstance. One, when you get towards the end game, you start accumulating titanium more. It's not quite as scarce of a resource, but early on, definitely don't spend this stuff. It's not going to benefit you. It's just kind of going to be wasted. Why would you ever probably improve the rarity? Well, here's one of the rare places you might see it. Say you get a piece of blue gear. Armor, can go up as you increase level, as you increase the rarity, that stuff's going to go up. But you get something here that has like max health that's really high in comparison to something else that you've got, cooldown reduction, and healing assistant. Maybe these 3 pieces right here are perfect to your build, and you're like, all right, it's not legendary, which is going to be the end game, but if you have a crap ton of titanium and you're just like, I found something that really fits into my build, if I could just make some adjustments to it, and maybe the first mod that's on it actually is one of the 2 that you typically use. Now, rare gear is only going to have tier 1 mods. When you get down to this level, when you get an epic piece of gear, you're going to get a tier 2 mod. You guys can see it actually shows a little Roman numeral 2 over that question mark. So you're going to unlock a tier 2 mod for this piece of gear. You just don't know what that's going to be. Now, you could always write over that, and I'll cover modding in a second. But there's honestly very few circumstances I would use Improve Rarity, and especially early on, I would not. The only time is likely end game, where it's like I found a random blue piece of gear, and it has firepower, say status power, it has everything that fits into my specific build. And then maybe it's like, okay, if I got enough titanium, maybe I'll improve the rarity, see if, and it's got a mod on it that I like everything is perfect. That's basically what I'm saying. If you're doing this, this blue piece of gear has to basically be perfect already, and then you'll have one more mod that you can put in there. But the main piece is, the only issue with this is the fact that you're always going to be stuck with a tier 1 mod. Because even if you unlock a tier 2 mod, and even if you throw a tier 3 mod, which I'll cover what those are in a second, you're still going to have that tier 1 mod stuck. So I honestly can basically tell you guys there's rare points that you're going to need to improve rarity. So overall, I wanted to explain what it was, but my recommendation is not to do this. Now, the second thing is going to be raise attributes. Now, before I go in there, it did mention the shards used on gear can be partially recovered. So you guys can see currently the little shard icon is on cooldown reduction. Shards are received when disassembling weapons and armor. Shards can be used in crafting to raise the specific attribute values. If I took this piece of gear and I dismantled it, I would get some cooldown reduction shards. Currently, the list of shards that I have are as follows. I don't have a ton of cooldown reduction shards, so, you know, this will benefit me a little bit, but that's not what I'm talking about. But that's the idea, is if I click on this piece of gear, this one's actually also cooldown reduction. Say this one's bonus firepower. So if I break down this piece of gear, I'm going to get some bonus firepower shards. I have a lot of those. I have like 1,800, so I'm doing okay on that front. But that's how you know when you break down a piece of gear what you're going to get. Most of the time, it's just going to be breaking down enough gear to accumulate what you need, and it's just going to take a little while to get there. But that's at least how you know what you're going to get back from it. One different example is take my legendary that I'm using at this current time. Notice there are shards in 2 categories. Well, I've upgraded one of the categories. So if I go into raise attributes here, I think status power was at 0, and I bumped it up 1. So if I do dismantle this, I'm going to get back both critical damage shards, and I'm going to get some status power shards. Now, I'm probably not going to get the total number of shards that I spent in the first place, but you will get some back that you spent. If you're like, oh, I put this effort in, it's like, well, I finally found a better weapon. If you do dismantle that thing you've like really leveled up, you will get some of it back. You won't get it all, but you will get some. So just keep that in mind. Well, let's go back to that previous weapon or piece of gear, and let's look in the raise attributes. So here you guys can see I've got max health, cooldown reduction, and healing received. And if you want to know all the different options, these are them. So you've got anomaly power, bonus firepower, max health, close range damage, long range damage, skill life leech, healing power, healing received, status power, armor pierce, weapon life leech, crit damage, and cooldown reduction. Probably random in how much of those that I have. You could have a completely different setup, but you'll slowly be accumulating these shards, and these are basically for the deep version of min-maxing. I would never tell you to take a blue piece of gear and level up the attributes on it. It's not worth it. This is going to be for taking a higher piece of gear. Take like one of these new ones I got, and it's not even that high of a level. I'm not really towards the end game, so putting, you know, max health on this one, it's not that expensive per se for 123 shards, but if you look at my max health, I have 1,567. If I'm going to take this from tier 0 to tier 6, that's going to cost me, what is that going to cost me? 750 of these shards. That'd basically expend half of my max health shards that I have. Now, it depends on how frequent we start coming by these when you start breaking stuff down. I'll have to see how that goes when I get into the end game grind. But the main thing I want to say is this is for the end game. This is for going deep into min-maxing. If you're like, all right, I got a pair of gloves, I've got it set up right with the right mods, and all 3 of these are great. Okay, now I can start spending something on these shards. That's definitely where it is going to be beneficial, and you guys can see max health might jump from 237 to 251. Long range damage goes up by like 1/3%. Skill life leech goes up 1/4%. So they're not huge bumps. That's also why, if you're going to take the time to put, you know, a vast chunk of shards into one piece of gear and get maybe skill life leech from 3.25% up to, what would this take it up to? Maybe 4.75% if you max it out, or maybe 4.5%. It's not a huge jump. So remember, what you're spending is not going to be big. This is like the end game, like truly min-maxing your character to the absolute epitome of as good as you can make it. And that's going to be your ultimate end game. That's when you're getting up to like level 50 gear probably. So again, raising attributes is more of an end game thing. Conserve your shards early on. Now the third piece is going to be modding your gear. Now I've covered a couple different types of mods. You have tier 1 mods, and rare gear will only have a tier 1 mod on it. You'll always see it that way. Now you'll also notice on this piece of gear where it says fine-tuned, over here this little box, it's like a 2x2 grid, shows this little box. If I click on another piece of gear, this is probably even better. So Fixer Upper has the same little box, Ash Cleaner does not. What this little like 2x2 grid icon means is that I have dismantled a piece of gear previously that had this mod on it. So when I go into the mod menu in a second that I'll show you guys, it's going to be unlocked, and it's something I can slot into any other piece of gear ever. Mods are not consumables. You unlock them permanently, so you only have to dismantle them once. That being said, Ash Cleaner, that's a mod that I have not unlocked yet. So there's a couple reasons why you actually don't want to overwrite mods, and also why it would benefit you to dismantle this one when you're done with its use as opposed to selling it. And I'll cover that in a little bit. But if we go into the mod menu, you can only mod rare. You can basically only mod things that come with mods. You can't, you know, mod a green piece of gear because there's a mod slot. If we click on mod gear, you're going to see tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So right here we've got Fixer Upper. Now that one, I've already got unlocked because you guys can see Fixer Upper. It's right here. I've already got it unlocked. And if you want to know, I know it's unlocked. I can come over here, literally go to the same thing, and here is Fixer Upper, and I can literally slot it into the first slot. So I've already got that unlocked for my modding. I don't need to do anything about it. But this is how this part of crafting is something I would definitely look into doing frequently because it's not that expensive. I've been breaking down a fair amount of gear and weapons as you go through the game. You just accumulate a lot when you're doing things. Some of it you're going to sell, some of it you're going to dismantle. By doing the just basic dismantling and finding, enemies that you kill, iron you can get from two places. Dismantling weapons and finding like the mining nodes that are out in the world. You'll just see them on the walls. Leather, you're going to get by dismantling armor and killing monsters, usually the bigger ones. So you're going to get this from two different places and you're going to accumulate a decent amount. I don't know if I'm ever going to use the 62 and 42,000 that I've got now. And the fact that modding in, mods might cost, even for a tier 3, might cost like 500 leather. You're not going to worry too much about this currency. So, that being said, if you start figuring out a build, a certain playstyle feels good, your skill tree is one of those things that is kind of in a good spot, you want to lean into it, then if you find a piece of gear that's starting to work with your playstyle, switching out mods, I totally recommend that. Do that as much as you want to, mix it up, have some fun, totally fine. And all you have to do, say Fixer Upper, say I want to change that over to Ice Pack. By doing my left mouse click, I can put it in the first slot. My right mouse click, I can put it in the second slot. Now, there's one thing I do want to say. Ash Cleaner is a mod that I have not previously unlocked for crafting. So what I would recommend, unless this is just like the perfect piece of armor, I highly recommend not overriding a mod like this with something you haven't unlocked yet. I would tell you to probably break this down and look for another piece, unless it is just like perfect otherwise. And that's going to be a rare occurrence. If you get a piece of legendary armor, I'll show you guys one of those since I finally got one. This is a tier 3 mod. So this one is going to be a unstoppable force. Increases your anomaly power by 50% of your resistance piercing. Alright. So here you can actually see that I've got a tier 3 mod that's available. Haven't unlocked that one. True Blast is another mod. Now that's actually for a different class, which is a little weird that I got that. Could have just been a random drop, and maybe that's the whole point of expeditions. You can help your other characters out. We'll have to see how that goes, but that's the thing. But this is a tier 3 mod. I definitely do not want to put like a mod over the tier 3 mod just to override it, because then I would have to get one of these to drop again to unlock it. If I don't think this piece of gear is going to be beneficial to my character or any other character that I'm playing, it'd be much more beneficial for me to break this mod down, and then I could use this unstoppable force somewhere in the future. So modding is easy to do. All you do is pick the tier, pick the place you want it to go, top slot or bottom slot, and then, you're good to go. So mods are very simple, and unlocking them works as follows. Let me see if I can show you guys something in my inventory that might have something I can unlock. So if I go to my inventory, this is a perfect example. So this sniper rifle has a mod, Improved Weakening Bullets. As you can tell, the icon is not next to it on the right-hand side. Killer Medic, you can tell that icon's there. I've unlocked that previously, but Improved Weakening Bullets, I have not unlocked that one. If I go to my sniper rifle and I go to dismantle, these are the things that I'm going to get. I'm going to get 11 titanium from this piece of gear. I'm going to get the healing received shards, 40 of those, and you can see I'm also going to unlock that mod. So that's another way to know, if you're looking at a piece of gear, what mod you haven't unlocked. Take this one for example, same principle. I would unlock the Perpetual Mobile. This one down here, same mod. I think most of these I've cleared. This one, for example, if I break this one down, I'm going to get close range damage, since you guys can see it right there. Come down here, getting close range damage shards at 9 titanium, but I'm not going to get any mods. Even though they're tier 1 and tier 2, I've already unlocked them completely. So this, for example, is a point where I would actually sell this weapon. It depends. If you're trying to accumulate, say, close range damage, because that's what you want to upgrade for your playstyle, and you see something with close range damage shards on it, maybe you do want to, maybe you do want to dismantle that to keep building that up. But maybe on the other side, this has long range damage, and that's the shards that I'm going to get. Well, long range damage, say you're a Devastator, you're a class that's up close all the time. You don't care about long range damage. Well, this is something I would probably sell for scrap. And you can do a whole lot of marking and selling if you ever want to mark. I love this. Quick mark. I can literally mark every piece of gear of a category. If I want to mark every blue item, if I want to mark every purple item, I love the quick mark, so that's fantastic. But if I'm looking like, hey, I don't need long range damage shards, that's not my playstyle on this character, I can mark this one, and then if I walk over to a vendor, I can go sell it. Now, the perk of selling your gear is the fact that your scrap is actually going to be very beneficial. You got vendors all over the place. Here's a couple. These will unlock a little bit later, so I don't want to do too much spoilers, but the purpose of selling to vendors is going to be the fact that you can actually buy titanium later on, and it's not as expensive as you think, surprisingly. And you're also going to be able to go through it fairly quickly. But if I go over here and I'm going to sell, I can see that this is going to sell for 5,400 scrap. That's a good chunk. And if this is something I don't need, then sure, I can sell it. But also you can see Storm Whip. Dots bring down lightning on an enemy dealing 10,000 damage. I have not unlocked that mod, so actually this is not one that I want to sell. But if I say do want to sell this, for example, I can sell this thing for 5,600. I've already got the mods unlocked. Maybe I am a long-range player, so a close-range damage shard, don't really care about that one. Then selling this one is going to serve me well. So that's the big thing with mods. You've got Tier 1, which are going to be on rare items. You've got Tier 2, which are going to be on epic items. And then you've got Tier 3, which is going to be on your legendary items. And those specifically are going to be pretty valuable. So like this, for example. Brain Eater is one that I slotted into this one. It's really cool into my build. Claymore Torrent, this is one that I'm never going to, if I dismantle this weapon, it will unlock Claymore Torrent. And pretty much any legendary you get is going to have something unique. Legendary Minefield. This one's got Killing Spree. Down here to Legendary Armor. I've got Unstoppable Force. This one's got Captain Hunter. So the Tier 3 mods are where this game is really, really going to change. And you'll notice, if I come up here to this one, and I want to mod gear, the reason Tier 3s are so crucial is because the power of Tier 3s, they're just, I mean, they're the final tier. They're the coolest stuff you can get. The nice thing is, you can take any legendary, and then you can have 2 Tier 3s. So if you have the first one, and then you put another Tier 3 mod into the other slot, you have a weapon with crazy power, with 2 Tier 3 mods doing some absolutely bonkers things, and it only costs you 516, iron to put in a Tier 3 mod. It's not that expensive. So when you get to legendaries and you start unlocking these Tier 3 mods, and then you start combining forces with your gear and everything, you're going to have some very, very special and fantastic builds. So have fun with modding your gear. Be careful, like, overriding a mod. Be careful selling something that you haven't, unlocked yet. Watch those little icons first, but modding your gear, it's fantastic. All right, so the next piece is going to be swap variant. Now, this is specifically to weapons. Armor, it's not going to be a thing. Now, what swap weapon is going to do is literally allow you to change the type of weapon that you get. Now, you guys can see, take this one, for example. This is a standard rifle. It's a sniper rifle, but it's the rifle category. So if I come in here to swap variant, doesn't matter, you can do it to any type. I can take it from a standard to a one-shot. The clip is one size. The damage goes up drastically. Reload time's a little quicker because you do only have one bullet, but you can see the crit multiplier goes down a bit. Range goes away, but your accuracy is just insanely accurate. You're going to probably hit that shot. Currently, this is a standard rifle. This is basically all about picking your playstyle. So again, here's a sharpshooter variant for a assault rifle. If I go into swap variant, you have 3 styles. Tactical is going to change it from a clip size of 15 to 30. It's actually a little 3-shot burst, which I do like. Actually, the tactical variant is really fun to use. And you can literally do this over and over. I can switch it to tactical. I can switch it to standard. I can switch it to sharpshooter. I can move it as much as I want. Yes, I'm actually spending iron while I do that. I have enough that I'm not concerned. But if you're like, oh, this sharpshooter's cool, but what is a tactical? Try it out. You may actually like it, or standard. So again, it really depends on your playstyle. This is something that's not going to mess with anything, override it. Not a whole lot of worry here because you're always going to be able to switch it back, and so it's just going to cost you a little bit more iron. So swapping variant is pretty low key in what it does. And that is unfortunately something you cannot do to a legendary. A legendary is specifically going to be its one type. If I got this bolt action lightweight rifle, I am stuck with that type no matter what I do. But if I have this, pistol that's full auto, and I want to make that thing burst fire, or high caliber, or standard, all of these are going to be options that are easy switches, and it tells you everything. So if I take full auto to high caliber, I get 14 bullets. My RPMs is 333. It takes my damage up from 578 to 1589. Reload is going to be slower, and my crit multiplier is going to be much higher. So Figure out what fits into your playstyle, where you have the most damage. Some are probably going to be optimized for certain situations, and others are going to be better for different playstyles even. So overall, swap variant is just a nice, really cool, just a quality of life thing. Because if I get, you know, if I truly do get this assault rifle that's great, it's got cool mods, I messed with it, it's like fitting with my playstyle right now, but I'm like, you know, the armor piercing skill, everything is right, except it's a sharpshooter, and I want it to be a tactical. Switch it to tactical, everything else stays the same. Now you get a gun that you like even more. This is just a really nice quality of life thing. So swap variant, toy around with it. If you get say a bolt action sniper rifle that is not locked into a specific type. So here's an auto sniper. You can see that I can swap from standard auto, which I think is potentially, and then full auto. So it's 18 clip size to 36. Damage goes down a smidge. RPMs are higher, reloads higher. But the standard has a higher crit percentage. So again, you have give and takes in most of them. Figure out what fits with your playstyle, but swap variant, just a cool quality of life thing that they put in. The final piece for crafting is going to be leveling up. Now, early on, don't do this, and I'm going to tell you why, because it's not going to be cheap. Now, most of the gear that I've got is fairly high. Take this level 34, for example. If I want to level this epic piece of gear up, it's going to cost me 39 titanium. But it costs me 39 titanium, and then it literally increases every level. But it costs that much every level. It's not like it's going to take me from 34 to my current max level of 43. It's going to take it from 34 to 35. Now, is the jump in firepower a lot? Absolutely. But that's mostly why I'm going to tell you to, like, let some of your earlier weapons go, somewhere in the 30s even. Because when you start getting up to 41 and you want to level this thing up to 42, now it costs me 94 titanium. Now, is the jump in damage a lot? Absolutely. Now, if this is something like this weapon, for example, this is basically what my entire build is built around right now, is a cool machine gun and Brain Eater, and then Claymore Torrent, actually, I figured out is a pretty fantastic mod as well. So, it's actually working real into my playstyle. So, if I want to be as efficient as possible when I'm going towards the end game, I can level this thing up to level 42. I can get a bump in firepower, I can get a bump in damage, but it cost me 188 titanium. I've only got 922. I could bump this up twice and basically, you know, knock out half my titanium. The more you grind the end game, your resources are going to get more. You can buy titanium. You can use scrap to buy titanium. And that's something I'm probably going to be doing a lot more as I sell off like random stuff that I don't need. Save your titanium early on because honestly, it's just going to be mostly wasted. But when it comes later on, there is some benefits. If I was very much into a sniper build, and like everything was built around that, and I got this legendary, and I could level it up, and I could spend 150 to bump this thing up that much more, and take it to level 43, it might actually be worth it, because if that's what my entire playstyle is built around, it's going to help. So, leveling up early on, don't do that. You're going to get gear, you're going to get random blues, you're going to get stuff of very different levels all over the place, you're going to get a crap ton of gear. Enjoy it, mix around. When you start getting into a build, when you start getting into the deeper end, like this piece of gear, I've got status power, which helps my toxic effect, long range damage, usually sitting at range, and anomaly power. I've got already my mods in here that I want. If I want to spend the 75 to level this thing up to the next level, this is probably going to be worth it. And you'll notice the only thing it does is it bumps up the level, it bumps up the main stat of either armor or firepower, and then it's also going to take your anomaly power, status power, and long range power, and it's basically going to re-roll them. They usually don't go down, but they do change a little bit. So, for example, I'm going to take one of these pieces of gear. We're going to say level it up. And we're going to go 214, 8%, and 23.3. 214, 8%, 23.3. I got a little bit of health. That didn't change much. The armor's a little bit higher, and that's pretty much all that changed. But you also noticed 94 titanium. And it probably costs more than 94. I just didn't look. I think, what was it last time? 75. So the titanium expenditures get really high really fast. That's why titanium's going to be a big thing. But overall, leveling up when you get to the end game, when you actually have armor that kind of really, like these 5 pieces of gear really fit into my build until I get into some of the legendary stuff. When I start getting tier 3 mods, that's when I'm going to start changing stuff out. But for now, the epic stuff is actually fitting into my build fairly well, and it's working for what I'm going for. That basically covers crafting in as much detail as I know. That's the basics. You've got improved rarity. Most of the time, unless later on, like don't do this early ever. And in the end game, unless I find a piece of blue gear that looks like magical perfection, then maybe. but probably still not, because if you improve rarity, your end game is really going for legendary gear with tier 3 mods. That's your actual end game, because if you go for the wrong type of thing, it's not helping you as much. So improve rarity, I probably wouldn't do. Raise attributes, that's very much for end game, that's for min-maxing. You've got modding gear, you can do that all the time because the resources are not that much, toying around with different mods, seeing which ones work. Because, I mean, if I take this piece of blue gear, but I'm like, hey, I'm using, you know, shrapnel's in there, but my current build is using the pain launcher, slot it in, done, good to go. Like, mess with mods all the time. It's a ton of fun, and if you have a certain playstyle or certain abilities you enjoy using, the abilities are absolutely, like, game changed when you really start using the mods. And then finally, you've got leveling up and the swap variants. The swap variants, the quality of life, mostly for your weapons, and then leveling up, again, that's more towards the end game when you really kind of start to have a build somewhat made, and you want to bring that with you to make your end game grind a bit easier. So that is Crafting 101 for Outriders. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Dr. Zahidi unlocks like in your second world, so you'll see him pretty soon. If you did enjoy this video, drop a like below. If you have questions about any of this stuff, please leave a comment. If you have any cool things that I didn't mention, please comment those as well. You guys can also find me on Twitter. Pretty much, you know, news about new videos, what I'm streaming, that type of stuff. And you also find me streaming on Twitch and sometimes streaming on YouTube as well. So thank you all very much. Hope you find this beneficial, and I'll see you guys in the next one. My next video is going to be about my Technomancer's build as well. It's a fantastically fun, powerful build. I'm basically a glass cannon, but it's fun. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.